Hi, it's Vic. Welcome back to my channel. So I'm just going to take you through the steps on how I made this card. So I've gone ahead and trimmed down an A5 piece of watercolour paper, and then I'm going to be using this Time for Tea Designs wood grain stamp. But first, because I'm going to be doing some heat embossing, I'm just prepping my card so that my powder doesn't go everywhere. So I have some VersaFine Mark ink, and I'm just going to go ahead and ink up this stamp. And for me, I find it so much easier just using the stamp as it is. I don't really take it off the packaging because this way I have more control over the pressure. So I'm just placing that watercolour paper over the top and then just using my fingers to add pressure. So hopefully I can get a nice clean impression. So I've got some Wow white embossing powder, so I'm just sprinkling this over, and then I'm going to be using my heat gun to heat set the embossing powder. And we're heat setting the embossing powder because when I go to watercolour and add all my colours, the white will still peek through, so that's why I'm using my white embossing powder. You can also use any colour embossing powder that you like, the process will still work exactly the same. So now I'm going to be adding my water, and I've got some Distress Oxide ink, so I'm using Twisted Citron, Worn Lipstick and Spiced Marmalade, and I have an old rag there. So what I'm doing now, I'm just applying water over the watercolour card, and then I'm adding the water to the inks and just blending this all together. And I'm using that rag just to clean my brush each time so that the colours don't muddy together. To speed up the drying process, I'm using my heat gun and I'm heating this on the front piece of card and also the back so that it won't warp too much. And once that's complete, I'm then going in with the Smile Inverted Scallop frame dies. So I'm using the larger frame for this, and I'm going to be trimming this down. So I have a nice pink shimmery card. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that out and then run that through my machine. And this is what the frame looks like once it's die cut, but as you can see it has like double stitching around the edges. So I've got my paper trimmer and I'm just lining up the first stitch around the scalloped parts, and then I'm going to just trim that down because I want my frame to be slightly offset from my card. And I've done this just to give the card a bit more added interest, but of course you can just die cut the frame and use it that way. And now I'm going to be using the Hillside Village stamp set. So I didn't know which one to pick. I didn't know whether to pick the houses or the trees because both of them are just lovely. So I've gone with the houses, and I'm just going to go ahead and ink this up. So I'm going to be doing some watercolouring on this stamp. So I've got some waterproof ink and I also have some watercolour card. So I've got my watercolour paints here. So now I'm just going to go ahead and colour up these images, and I wanted to keep the houses quite a light soft colour to go with the background that I'd done previously. And now I'm just adding a couple more layers to some of the houses to darken up the images, and then I have the coordinating dies. So I always secure the dies down with some washi tape, and then I'll go ahead and quickly run this through my die cutting machine. So once that's been die cut, I'm just placing that on my card along with the frame just to get a rough idea of where I'm going to place everything. And now I'm going in with the You Got Mail stamp set, and these snails are just adorable. I think they're just brilliant, and they're so easy to colour too because they're quite big. So I'm just going ahead and stamping down all my images. So I have some Copic friendly cards, and I'm also using my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. This will stop your alcohol markers from running into the ink and getting all muddy and ruining your colouring. So if you don't have a Memento Tuxedo Black ink pad, I highly recommend getting one, especially for your Copic colouring. I've listed all the Copic markers that I've used for my images today on the screen, and I wanted to keep them quite bright because they're such a fun image. So I've gone in with some purples, reds and greens, and then I'm just going and colouring up the post box, and then I'm going to colour up the little ladybird and then the tulips. You could also add some glitter or shimmer to the snail shells. I think that'd look quite cute too. And once my images are coloured, I've got the coordinating dies, so I always use washi tape to secure them down. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that and then run them through my die cutting machine. So now I have that ink blended piece of card, and I've used some foam tape for the back of this card just because my paper did get a little bit warped, and applying the foam tape will help straighten the card out. So I've just got that house die, and I've just got some PVA glue, and I'm really pressing that down because we have the embossing powder. So I'm just pressing that down quite firmly to make sure it adheres down. And then I've got some double-sided tape which I've doubled up just to give extra dimension. So I'm just placing that all around the frame, and then I'm going to go ahead and place this onto my card. And as I trimmed the edges down, it's obviously smaller than my A5 size card, which is the look that I was going for. So to adhere the rest of the images, I'm just using some foam tape, and I'm doubling up the foam tape because we have that frame that's quite thick. And then I have PVA glue for the little tulip flowers and the little ladybug, so I'm using that to adhere them onto my card. And now for my sentiment, I have the Brighter Days sentiment cards. So I'm going to go ahead and trim down a sentiment, and these are brilliant just for quick cards. So if you don't have these, I do recommend getting some, because if you don't have time to do stamping, these are perfect for that. So as I said before, the frame is double the thickness, so I've done double the thickness on the back of my sentiment, and then I've just added a dot of PVA to the bit that's going on the actual frame. And now I'm going ahead and just removing the backing tape from the foam tape just to place my card front onto my card base. And here you can see all the added textures and how much dimension that frame gives. And that finishes the video today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care. Bye.